Hey, good afternoon, y'all. This is Ryan Jackson from Ryan Jackson LLC. Hope you're having a blessed and wonderful day. Hope you had a blessed and wonderful week. Today is Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Happy Friday to you all. It's been a few days since I've been on here, a little over a week. I apologize for that. My father-in-law passed not this Monday, but the Monday before last on May 15th. So, like I said, not this past Monday, but the Monday before last. My father-in-law made his transition. So I've been dealing with that, been thinking about it. So that's why I haven't been coming on here. So my apologies for that. I miss doing these. Doing these help me. It's something I enjoy doing. That's why I do it. And I like sharing information and giving my point of view on news that comes through, current events, like giving my perspective and for you all to chime in and let me know what you think. So I miss doing that. So that's what I was dealing with. Again, I apologize for the delay, and just keep us in your prayers. Pray for our family. Keep us, in your condolences. And we wasn't brought here to stay. We all have to pay that bill. So death is going to befall us all. But it's important that you take care of yourself and that you build a legacy while you're here. That you have to take care of yourself. You have to do that. Make sure that people don't lie at your home going. They don't make up stuff to make you seem like a um a saint. So it's important that you live your life to the fullest every day, because tomorrow is not guaranteed to us. We don't know when death is going to be upon us. So it's important that we live every day to the fullest and to the best of our ability to do the right thing, not to be perfect because none of us are perfect, but just to do the right thing. Just be respectable. Treat people how you would like to be treated. Treat people. It's not hard to be a decent human being. It's not a hard thing to do. You know, um, but for some it is, and I just don't get it. It's not hard to be a decent human being. Just treat people the way you would like to be treated. Respect people. That's not hard. You know, like I always say on here when I close, just be safe because the devil's busy out here. Just take care of yourselves and your family, man. Just it's important that we do that now more than ever. We're gonna do a celebration of life service for him September 16th. His birthday would have been September 23rd. So a week before his birthday, on the 16th of September, we're going to do a celebration of life for him then. So, like, again, just keep our family in your condolences, and we appreciate it. Thanks. Now, again, the topic for this video, speaking of someone passing away, last week, Thursday, May 18th, we lost Jim Brown, the legendary Mr. Jim Brown. He passed away at 87 years old. He was a legend, not just on the football field, but in acting and in the community. He was B1. He was B1 before it was cool. So rest in power, Mr. Jim Brown. I know I'm 8 days late on this, but I felt it in my heart to do this video. And like I said, I was dealing with something last week. And so I said, I want to do this video. So as you know, pay my tributes to Mr. Jim Brown, a man that I love and respected. He was born in St. Simon's Island, Georgia, on February 12th, 1936. So 87 years old. I think that's February 12th. Let me see. Um, yep, St. Simon's Island. St. Simon's is off the Atlantic. It's in the Atlantic, off the coast of Georgia. Georgia, South Carolina, in that area. The southern part of South Carolina. Um, I've been to that area, but I haven't been to St. Simon's Island. But I'm familiar with the state of Georgia pretty much because I have family down there still. And I used to go down there a lot when I was a little boy. And even in my adult life, I used to go to Georgia a lot. But Mr. Jim Brown was born on St. Simon's Island in Georgia during the time of Jim Crow, 1936. Um, he attended Syracuse University. Syracuse, great, good school, Syracuse. Dr. Boyce Watkins was a professor there, a finance professor there. So great school. Give me 1 second here and see what I want to see what year what the actual date of his birth was. Oh, I'm sorry, February 17th, 3 days before my birthday. So February 17th, 1936 is when Mr. Jim Brown was born. St. Simon's Island, Georgia. Went on to attend Syracuse University, great school. They have a great basketball program, what they did. I know they've been struggling a lot a few years. A decent football program. He went on there, um, he played football and played lacrosse. A lot of people don't know this, but Jim Brown is in two Hall of Fames. He's in a football Hall of Fame and he's in the lacrosse Hall of Fame. Great lacrosse player. Great lacrosse. Probably could have became a professional lacrosse player, but he made his bones on football. So there's that. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit that thumbs up button. Smash it down. Hit the subscribe button so you get notifications when I do videos on here. Trying to see here. Oh, he did move from, that's what I thought. He did move from St. Simon's Island, Georgia, and he moved to Manhasset, New York. Manhasset, New York is on Long Island. It's in which is the suburbs of New York City. Those of you who've been to New York, Long Island is suburban New York. It's in the New York area, New York City metro area, but it's in the suburbs. So he moved to Manhasset, Long Island. Was in Nassau County, and it's a hamlet, a little small community. From there, he earned 13 letters in playing football, lacrosse, baseball, basketball, and running track. The man was a phenomenal athlete. There's no doubt about it. He was raised by his grandmother on St. Simon's Island, and he credited his grandmother with giving him self-reliance. So his grandmother raised him, and she raised a phenomenal man. Mr. Brown averaged a Long Island record 38 points a game for his basketball team, high school basketball team. Um, he went on to attend Syracuse University, like I alluded to. He was the only black player on the football team as a freshman in 1953, 17 years old. The only black player. He endured racist taunts at Syracuse, which is, I mean, it's upstate New York, but it's still in America. Doesn't matter if it's St. Simon's Island, Georgia, Syracuse, New York, Chicago, LA, wherever. Racism is racism. It's the United States. That's what she's good at. Doesn't matter what region of the country you reside in. You're not going to escape racism. I don't know why people think that because you reside in out west or up north or wherever. Oh well, I'm going to escape racism. But a lot of black people thought that way, and some still think that way. Sad though, but you'll never escape racism. He was warned against dating Caucasian women. That's funny. Which he that's another thing I'm gonna touch on later. As a sophomore at Syracuse, Brown was the second leading rusher on the team. As a junior, he rushed for 676 yards, which is 5.2 yards per carry. In his senior year in 1956, Brown was a consensus first team All American. He finished fifth in the Heisman Trophy voting and set school records for highest season rush average, 6.2, and most rushing touchdowns in a single season. I mean, in a single game, excuse me, which he had six. He ran for 986 yards, third most in the country, despite Syracuse playing only 8 games, and scored 14 touchdowns. In the regular season finale, 61-7 rout of Colgate, God dang, he rushed for 197 yards, scored 6 touchdowns, and kicked 7 extra points for a school record 43 points. In the Cotton Bowl, he rushed for 132 yards, scored 3 touchdowns, and kicked 3 extra points, but a blocked extra point after Syracuse's third touchdown was the difference as TCU, Texas Christian University, defeated them 28-27, the Syracuse Orangemen. In addition to his football accomplishments, Mr. Brown excelled in basketball, track, and especially lacrosse. As a sophomore, he was the second leading scorer for the basketball team, 15 points per game, and earned a letter on the track team. In 1955, he finished fifth place in the national championship decathlon. His junior year, he averaged 11.3 points in basketball and was named a second team All American in lacrosse. Wow. He is in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame, which I alluded to earlier. The GMA Wireless Dome has an 800 square foot tapestry depicting Mr. Brown in football and lacrosse uniforms with the words "Greatest Player Ever." Wow. Oh, it says here, while in college, Mr. Brown participated in the Reserve Officers Training Corps, ROTC. After graduating, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant. During his time in the NFL, Brown continued his military commitment as a member of the U.S. Army Reserve. He served for 4 years and was discharged with the rank of captain. I didn't know that. Wow. Mr. Brown was taken in the first round of the 1957 NFL draft by the Cleveland Browns, the sixth overall selection. In the ninth game of his rookie season against the LA Rams, he rushed for 237 yards, setting an NFL single game record that stood unsurpassed for 14 years, and a rookie record that remained for 40 years until Corey Dillon, I remember Corey Dillon of the Cincinnati Bengals, rushed for 246 yards in a week 15 game against the Tennessee Oilers, which later became the Tennessee Titans. My dad was a huge Jim Brown fan. Loved his movies, loved him. He always talked about Jim Brown, Jim Brown. My dad grew up in the 1950s and 60s, so he remember watching Jim Brown play. Loved Jim Brown. That was his favorite player. Like again, he liked his movies and he liked what Jim Brown did in the black community. And so I grew up hearing about Jim Brown from a little boy, Jim Brown. Of course, I wasn't around when he played, but I just remember him, my dad talking about him, my grandfather talking about him. Jim Brown. It was three people I heard a lot about. Um, Joe Lewis for my grand Joe Lewis and Jackie Robinson for my grandfather, and Jim Brown for my dad. Oh, and Muhammad Ali. So those four right there. Um, Joe Louis, Jackie Robinson, Jim Brown, and Muhammad Ali. I saw Muhammad Ali's last two fights, so I'm able to remember Muhammad Ali boxing vaguely, but I'm able to remember it. But the other three gentlemen, of course I wasn't around, but I heard stories about them. Moving on, Mr. Brown broke the single. I'm gonna say Mr. Brown. I'm not gonna call him by his last name. He deserves that respect. Mr. Brown broke the single season rushing record in 1958, gaining 1,527 yards in a 12-game season, shattering the previous NFL mark of 1,146 yards set by Steve Van Buren in 1949. He shattered that record. He shattered it, as well as most rushing yards per game in a season with, 127.3. Wow. In this MVP season, Mr. Brown led all players with a staggering 17 touchdowns scored, beating his nearest rival, Baltimore Colts wide receiver Raymond Berry, by 8. I heard about him too. After 9 years in the NFL, Mr. Brown departed as the league's record holder for both single season 1,863 in 1963 and career rushing 12,312 yards, as well as the all time leader in rushing touchdowns, which stood at 106. Total touchdowns, 126, and all purpose yards, 15,549. He was the first player to reach the 100 rushing touchdowns milestone, and only a few others have done so since, despite the league's expansion to a 16-game season in 1978. Now it's 17 games, which is the dumbest thing. They did that last season. It's stupid. Brown's first four seasons were only 12 games, and his last five were 14 games. Mr. Brown's record of scoring 100 touchdowns in only 93 games stood until LaDainian Tomlinson did it in 89 games during the 2006 season. I remember that. Mr. Brown holds the record for total seasons leading the NFL in all-purpose yards from 1958 to 1961 and again in 1964, and is the only rusher in NFL history to average over 100 yards per game for a career. In addition to his rushing, Mr. Brown was a superb receiver out of the backfield, catching 262 passes for 2,499 yards and 20 touchdowns, while also adding another 628 yards returning kickoffs. This man was phenomenal. In every season he played, Mr. Brown was voted into the Pro Bowl, and he left the league in style by scoring 3 touchdowns in his final Pro Bowl game. Mr. Brown's 1,863 rushing yards in the 1963 season remains a Cleveland Browns franchise record. It is currently the oldest franchise record for rushing yards out of all 32 NFL teams. Wow. Mr. Brown was famous for his stiff arm and combined speed, power, and relentless endurance as a rusher. After winning his third league MVP in 1965, Brown retired in July 1966 at the age of 30 while still in top form. He then went on to retire after having an illustrious NFL career. My God, at the age of 30, still young. Another running back retired at the age of 30, Barry Sanders, while still in top form. He retired before training camp in 1999, 30 years old. Um, Matter of fact, Calvin Johnson, another Detroit Lion legend, aka Megatron, retired after the 2015 season at the age of 30. So you see, Mr. Jim Brown, Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, aka Megatron, all retired in top form at the age of 30. All three players. So he went on to acting when Mr. Brown retired from football, and he went on to go into acting. Great movie. My dad loved it. Great movie that he started filming was The Dirty Dozen. Great movie. Great movie. Art Modell, who was the late Art Modell, who was the owner of the Cleveland Browns at that time. He went on to moved them from Cleveland to Baltimore, and was owner of the Baltimore Ravens. He expected Mr. Brown to return after filming The Dirty Dozen over in England, but he retired, and Art Modell threatened him with fines for missing training camp. Mr. Brown held the NFL career rushing record of 12,312 yards until it was broken on October 7th, 1984, by the great Walter Payton, the late great Walter Payton. I remember when he broke that record. I do remember that. The late great Walter Payton. Mr. Brown is still the Browns' all-time leading rusher. I don't think that's going to change. As of 2018, he ranked 11th on the all-time rushing list. You know, you had Eric Dickerson, Emmett Smith, Barry Sanders, LaDainian Tomlinson. I mentioned the great Walter Payton. I think Franco Harris, Adrian Peterson. I'm thinking Eddie George, maybe. So all these great running backs, by the way, I think they surpassed Mr. Jim Brown's record. But that record for the Cleveland Browns, that's going to stand for a long time. There will never be another Jim Brown. Cleveland won the NFL championship in 1964 and were runner-ups in 1957 when they lost to the Detroit Lions, and 1965, his last season in the NFL. His rookie and final season, respectively. In the 1964 championship game, Mr. Brown rushed 27 times for 114 yards and caught 3 passes for 37. Hit that thumbs up button, smash that thumbs up button down. Hit the subscribe button so you get notifications when I do videos on here. Before his acting career, Brown began his acting career. Mr. Brown began his acting career before the 1964 season, playing a Buffalo soldier in a Western action film called Rio Conchos. In early 1966, Mr. Brown was shooting his second film in London, MGM's The Dirty Dozen. Mr. Brown was cast as Robert Jefferson, one of 12 convicts sent to France during World War II to assassinate German officers, meeting at a castle near Rennes in Brittany before the D-Day invasion. Wow. Production delays due to bad weather meant he missed at least the first part of training camp on the campus of Hiram College, which annoyed Art Modell, who at the time was the Cleveland Browns owner, and threatened Mr. Brown and was going to fine him $1,500, which is equivalent to $12,500 as of 2 years ago for every week of camp he missed. Mr. Brown, who had previously said that 1966 would be his last season, the final year of a 3-year contract, announced his retirement instead. He was cast in his first lead role in The Split, followed by Riot in 1969. He was the first Black action star and played a Marine captain in the 1968 film Ice Station Zebra. Great movie. He went on to star in 100 Rifles in 1969, which also starred Raquel Welch and Burt Reynolds, and he was billed over them and had a love scene with Welch, one of the first interracial love scenes and the first in a major Hollywood movie. Raquel Welch reflected on the scene in Spike Lee's Jim Brown All American. He was paid $200,000 for this role and received 5% of the film's box office, becoming one of the highest paid Black actors at that time. He made an appearance in Knight Rider. I remember that. Appeared in an episode with Joe Namath on the A-Team. I remember the episode too. Episode was called Quarterback Sneak. He appeared in an episode of Chips. Episodes 1 and 2 in season 3 as a pickpocket on roller skates. He appeared in the movie in 87 in The Running Man. I remember that movie. That's one of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And adaptation of Stephen King novel Fireball. Oh, an adaptation of Stephen King's Fireball, The Running Man was, with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Great movie. Came out in 87. I remember going to the theater to go see it. Yep. One of my favorite movies of his, my all-time favorite, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. Oh my God, that movie was so funny. Many of those of you who haven't seen it, please watch I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. It is a funny movie. Funny movie. There's this scene where Jim Brown got shot in his toe. He was having problems with his feet, complaining about problems about his toes, about his bunions hurting him. Well, he got shot in his bunion and it pulsated. It grew about this big and it was pulsating out his shoe. It was so funny. It was hilarious. But I'm Gonna Get You Sucker teamed him with Isaac Hayes. What's his name? Oh my God. I can't think of the man's name. He passed away. Of course, Isaac Hayes passed away. Bernie Casey. Bernie Casey as Slade. Keenan Ivory Wayans. Janae Dubois, who played Walona on Good Times and sung the theme for the Jeffersons. She played Keenan Ivory Wayans' mother. Kadeem Hardison was in it. Damon Wayans was in it. He was funny in that movie. What's the sister name? Dawn Lewis from A Different World played Jaleesa. She was in it. Robin Harris was in it. Chris Rock. So it was a great cast. But Jim Brown and Isaac Hayes, and I can't think of the guy that played the Kung Fu Master. Antonio Fargas was in it. He had a funny role in that movie too. But all these great actors from the 70s was in that movie. It was a parody. It was funny. I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. Funny movie. One of the funniest movies I've ever seen. Oh, that movie had cracked me up. Check it out if you already haven't. I remember in 1996 he appeared in Mars Attack. I want to say he played the president. Did he play the president in that movie? Or was that Jack Nicholson? But he appeared in Mars Attack and Sucker Free City. Oh, and another great movie he played in, which I love. In my opinion, the greatest sports movie ever. Any Given Sunday. He played a defensive coordinator, Montezuma Monroe. Montezuma Monroe in Any Given Sunday. He played alongside the great Al Pacino, who was the coach of the team, the Miami Sharks, parody of the Miami Dolphins. Um, LL Cool J, Jamie Foxx, Dennis Quaid, Bill Bellamy, who else? Lawrence Taylor. Great, great acting. James Woods, trying to think, Cameron Diaz, trying to think who else. Dick Buckus was in it. Johnny Unitas. It has some awesome people in that movie. Oh my gosh. Great movie. Great, great, great movie. Check it out. Any Given Sunday. I think Matthew Modine was in it too. He played like a team doctor or something, or the assistant team doctor. But James Woods was a team doctor. He was crooked. James Woods always crooked in his movies. It's just that's just a character. Maybe I don't know something to that. But Jim Brown played alongside Al Pacino, LL Cool J, and Jamie Foxx. Great movie. In my opinion, the greatest sports movie ever. Any Given Sunday. Check it out. He was known for his civil rights, and this is why he's a legend to me. Other besides his football career and acting career, which is great, what I look at is how he was B1 and how he loved the black community. He spoke out on racial issues in the 1950s as the civil rights movement was growing. He was one of the most prominent African American athletes to engage in civil rights activism before it was cool, way before LeBron was doing it. Um, LeBron, Chris Paul, before they were wearing t-shirts saying "Stop, hands up, don't shoot," which was the silliest shit I've seen. Before they were doing it, Jim Brown was actually risking his life and his career alongside Bill Russell, Muhammad Ali, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Matter of fact, Kareem boycotted the 1968 Olympics. Muhammad Ali's boxing career was taken away for what, 3.5 years? Because he refused to go into the Vietnam War. He said, I'm a Muslim and I'm a pacifist. We don't believe in, going over to another country to kill another poor person or another poor people. We're suffering for freedom here in America. And you want me to go thousands of miles to kill another poor person? No, Viet Cong never done anything to me. But when I'm fighting for freedom and justice, it's you who's denying me that. The U.S. government. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what the late great Muhammad Ali was saying. And he took a stand. Way before Kaepernick, I respect what Colin Kaepernick did, but it came on the shoulders of great men. Like I said, Mr. Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Tommy Smith, and John Carlos. It came on broad shoulders of great men before him. They were doing it before it was cool. Tommy Smith and John Carlos had the Black Fists Up, Black Power, at the Mexico City Olympics in 1968. Well, at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. They did not get their gold medals. I think they were sent home too and kicked off the U.S. Olympic team, if I'm not mistaken. But you standing up for your rights as a man, as a black man, and it came with great consequences in the 1960s. Now it's cool to do. Anybody, is you're not really taking a risk these days because well, you are. I take that back. You are, but the risks were greater back then than they are now. But a lot of people do it for with social media. It's watered down a lot of things because anybody could be a social media activist. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, a social media civil rights activist. It's so watered down because everyone is doing it now. It's everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. Some people are doing it with great intentions, are with honorable intentions, and they're doing it to educate people. But a lot of people are just jumping on the bandwagon. Black Lives Matter. Hands up, don't shoot. But these are the same people who go out and tell us to get the vaccine, to vote blue no matter who. They weren't doing that. Mr. Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, they weren't telling black people to go out and vote, to vote for the Democrats. They didn't care about that. They were fighting for civil rights. And they were doing it while a Democrat was in the White House by the name of Lyndon Baines Johnson from Texas, a Dixiecrat. President Lyndon Baines Johnson was in office during this time. Again, a Democrat, Dixiecrat, Democrat, whatever you want to call it, that's what he was. And Dr. King supported them in their fight. So, again, they were doing this way before it was cool. They were doing this where they risked their lives. They could have been killed, but they put that aside to fight for the right of black people. These men were B1. Much respect to the late great Mr. Jim Brown, the late great Mr. Bill Russell, the late great Muhammad Ali. Much respect to you, gentlemen. In 1967, Mr. Brown, alongside Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Carl Stokes, who later became the mayor of Cleveland, I think in 1967, the same year, the first black mayor of a major American city was Carl Stokes, became mayor of Cleveland, Ohio. We're all members of the Cleveland Summit. There's a famous picture of Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Bill Russell, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Carl Stokes. I believe he's standing behind them. Great picture, famous picture. I put it on my timeline on Facebook. You can check it out. We're all members of the Cleveland Summit, a meeting with Muhammad Ali held with the intention of convincing the four to rally behind and recruit others to help Ali's cause of civil rights in the United States. Because Ali was a pariah in American society at the time because of his opposition to the Vietnam War, which I alluded to, and the refusal to enter the draft, his boxing license had been revoked, and he faced up to 5 years in prison. For Mr. Brown and the other participants to stand with Ali, see, this is when black athletes stood together. They may not have agreed on everything, but they put that aside and they stuck together. They stayed on code. They were B1. Now they're B4 or 5. Sad how we just fallen. It's sad. It's just disheartening, and it's infuriating how far we've fallen from this right here. For Brown and the other participants to stand with Ali in support of him and his position consequently put their reputations and their careers at risk. I alluded to that. The Cleveland Summit was later called a significant turning point for the role of the athlete in society and one of the most important civil rights acts in sports history. Until this day, it is. Despite what LeBron and um, Chris Paul and these clowns are doing now, this was important. This is still the most important act of civil rights by athletes, as well as a predecessor of 21st century protest movement initiated by Colin Kaepernick. I alluded to that. In 1966, Mr. Brown founded the Negro Industrial Economic Union, later known as the Black Economic Union, BEU, to help promote economic opportunities for minority-owned businesses. Let me read that again. In 1966, Mr. Brown founded the Negro Industrial Economic Union, later known as the Black Economic Union, BEU, to help promote economic opportunities for minority-owned businesses. Mr. Brown later stated in the 1968 Ebony interview, "We've got to stop wasting all our energy and money marching and picketing and going things like camping down in Washington on a poor people's campaign." Let me repeat that again. Mr. Brown later stated in a 1968 Ebony interview, "We've got to stop wasting all of our energy and money marching and picketing and going things like camping down in Washington on a poor people's campaign. We've got to get off the emotional stuff and do something that will bring about real change. We've got to have industries and commercial enterprises and build our own sustaining economic base. Then we can face white folks man to man and we can deal." The BEU secured loans and grants, including from the Ford Foundation, to support community initiatives related to food, medicines, and farm and economic ventures in specific counties, starting with Marshall County, Mississippi. Because of Brown's economic advocacy for the African American community, Richard Nixon expressed support for Black capitalism in its campaign in the '68 United States presidential election and received an endorsement from Brown. I don't agree with his endorsement of Nixon, but that's that man's right. That's his right. He also endorsed Trump, or was at a photo op with Trump a few years back, and he got criticized for that. And that's that man's right. The man, and for those who criticized him, they didn't do a damn thing for the Black community. That's that man's right. I may not agree with it, you may not agree with it, but that's his right as a citizen of this country to support whomever he wants to support as president. Again, agree to disagree without being disagreeable. In 1988, Brown founded the Amir I Can Foundation. I remember that. An organization that sought to divert gang members and prisoners from violence by teaching them life skills. Through the foundation, Mr. Brown helped establish the Watts truce between the Bloods and the Crips, street gangs in LA. I remember that. He brought them to his home. He brokered a peace agreement, a truce between the Bloods and the Crips in LA in the late 80s. Rest in power, Mr. Jim Brown. Be one. Be one. Athletes like this don't exist. Athletes like this do not exist. After his football career, while he was still acting, because he was still acting in the late 80s, he founded Amir I Can Foundation. And this organization, like I said, it sought to divert gang members and prisoners from violence by teaching them life skills. This man was B1. I'm sorry, B1, B1. This is why I have so much respect for Mr. Jim Brown. I mean, great, great, great athlete, great football player, great lacrosse player, and he was excelled at other sports too, but primarily football and lacrosse. Great, that's great. Um, I loved his movies. He was a good actor. Beside all that, he cared about his people. He cared about the community. He cared about black people. He was B1, B1, B1. He didn't give a damn about his accolades in football and acting. The man was B1. He did not have to do this. Amir Khan, he didn't have to start the organization. A sister who I follow on Twitter, we actually follow each other. She said Jim Brown helped her out, and she's from New York, but his organization helped her out in order to get her doctorate degree, or it led to her getting her doctorate degree. But his organization played a significant role in her life. The man was B1. I cannot specify that enough. He brokered a truce between the Bloods and the Crips in LA, which is where he lived. He brought them to his home. I will never forget that scene. I will never forget that. That right there will always stick in my mind. How he had the leader of the Bloods and the leader of the Crips at his table, shaking hands. Gang members at his home, and he brokered a truce between them. I will never forget that. That sticks out more to me than anything he did in football or in acting. Of course, when you be one and you're a man of the people, you're gonna come to the attention of the FBI, which he did. They monitored Mr. Brown and his organizations. Files declassified in 2003 show that the FBI, the Secret Service, and several police departments had monitored Mr. Brown and the Black Economic Union, attempting to smear the group as a source of communist and radical Muslim extremism and collecting information to damage Mr. Brown's reputation. This devil is something else. Oh, God. Of course, when Mr. Brown died on last year, people brought up his assault allegations. Well, one person in particular brought up his assault allegations, saying that he was the definition of misogyny and the Me Too movement and how he abused women. Like I said, Mr. Brown was not perfect. Did he make mistakes in life? Yes, he did. We all do. I have, you have, we all have. Regrettable mistakes. And he made some regrettable mistakes. I'm not going to get on here and defend him. I'm not going to defend Mr. Brown's actions or his transgressions. Were they wrong? Yes. But I'm not going to just push this man to the side because of some bad things he did in his life or may have done. I'm not going to push this man to the side because of that. We all make mistakes. Did Mr. Brown make mistakes? Yes, he did. Was he perfect? No, he was not. I wasn't there for these assault allegations. I wasn't there. You weren't there. So they're allegations. If they're true, that's sad. You know, Mr. Brown, come on, sir, you could have done better. But I'm not going to push this man to the side and besmirch his name because of a few mistakes he made in his life. I'm not going to do that. Don't y'all do that. Don't y'all allow people to brainwash you into doing that. We always do that. Black people, some of us are the worst. We're worse than white people. We want our famous our famous people to be like Jesus, perfect, like angels, without a flaw. Then when they die, we find out or we bring up their past transgressions. Well, he slept with women. He cheated on his wife. He did drugs. He did this. He did that. Yada yada yada. And you besmirch their legacy and their life because of mistakes they made. They're human, for God's sakes. You make mistakes. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. How about we besmirch you? How about Allah besmirches you? The greatest besmircher, the greatest judge. You wouldn't like it at all. So don't do it to Mr. Brown, Kobe Bryant. Um, don't. It's not right. It's not right. It's not right. And don't. We shouldn't allow people to get away with that. Black people, I swear, some of our people will break our collective necks and backs to be the bouncers at Club White Supremacy. I will say that again. Some of our people will break their collective necks and backs to be the bouncers for Club White Supremacy. It's just it's crazy. It's sad. It's disheartening and it's callous and it's wrong. Did the man make mistakes? Yes. I'm not going to defend his mistakes. He know what he did. If it's proven that he did these things, I'm not saying he didn't. I'm not saying he did. There are allegations of him abusing women. If he did, that's bad. I'm not going to defend him. But at the same time, I'm not going to just spit on this man's legacy. I'm not going to do that. And don't y'all allow people to get y'all into doing that either. And I'm not going to go into this. It's about his domestic violence, him being arrested. He said, "There's no excuse for violence," Mr. Brown said in 2015. "There's never a justification for anyone to impose themselves on someone else. And it will always be incorrect when it comes to a man and a woman, regardless of what might have happened. You need to be man enough to take the blow. That is always the best way. Do not put your hands on a woman." That's all I'm gonna say on that. That's a great statement. It seemed like I'm reading here that he may have learned his lesson on his past transgressions. And I pray to Allah that he did. But I'm not going to spit on this man's legacy, on his legacy in life, because of mistakes he have made. I'm not going to do that. He's done too much for our people. I'm not going to defend it, but at the same time, I'm not going to spit on his legacy. I'm not going to do that. The same with Mr. Bill Cosby, and he's still among us. I'm not going to do that. Mr. Brown died of natural causes, and his wife and his children by his bedside. last Thursday, and may he rest in power. Great man, great man. He will be missed. 87 years young. That's a long time. Long, long, long time. Thank you for everything you've done for our people, Mr. Brown. Great, great man. Great man. Rest in power. You will be missed. Hit that thumbs up button. Smash that thumbs up button down. Hit the subscribe button so you get notifications when I do videos on here. Uh, let's just remember Jim Brown. Enjoy his movies. The Dirty Dozen. I think he was in Three the Hard Way. I think he was in that. Let me see. Yeah, I think he was in Three the Hard Way. Enjoy his movies. Um, The Dirty Dozen, Ice Station Zebra, 100 Rifles, Tick, 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 Three the Hard Way. I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. Great movie. The Running Man, Original Gangsters, Mars Attack, Any Given Sunday, Sucker Free City, The Black Godfather. Enjoy these films. Enjoy them. There should be old clips of his football career on YouTube. Enjoy those as well. And let's remember what he did for our community. Let's not dwell on his mistakes. Let's not dwell on that. We all make mistakes. But let's just remember how great this man was and what he did for our people. Let's remember that. Let's remember that. I'm gonna hop off of here. Y'all have a blessed and wonderful Friday. Have a blessed and wonderful weekend. It's the official kickoff to summer. Memorial Day weekend is the official start of summer, so they say. And from the weather around the country, like it's going to be warm in a lot of places. Not here, but back east. I know New York and Philly, Detroit, they're going to be in the 90s. It's going to be hot out there. So y'all stay safe. My family in Detroit, people in New York and Philly. Y'all be safe. Drink plenty of water. Stay hydrated. If you go out, just be safe. Beware and be aware. Beware and be aware. This devil's busy. And Atlanta's gonna be warm too. So y'all be safe down there too. My people's in Atlanta. Be safe. Beware and be aware. This devil's busy. Brothers as well as sisters, just be aware of your surroundings. I can't stress that enough. But enjoy this weekend and enjoy your loved ones, whatever you may do. All right, y'all. Till next time, like I always say, we don't have to agree, but let's agree to disagree without being disagreeable. Let's do that, y'all, even on subjects such as this. But in any event, y'all have a blessed and wonderful day, wonderful weekend. And thank you for your support. Continue to pray for me and my family and the loss of my father in law. It'd be greatly appreciated. Continue to support my podcast and this YouTube channel. Be greatly appreciated as well. Support your brother. I love y'all. I love y'all dearly. All right, now I'm out. Peace and blessings.